All right. So, did you ever hear from Chris at all?
No, he had said hey.
Yeah.
So I don't have an update on that. Okay. But at best, he was going to try to join remotely.
Okay.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, who's she?
Yeah. It's one of the talking points we opened. I can't wait to see who talks about it.
Can we bring back a guest?
Yeah. As long as he describes lower, middle, and upper Chantilly as part of the orientation. Crystal clear.
Down next to the rec center where we have all kinds of people.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. You know, just recording each other.
Yeah.
To man that stage.
Yes, yes. District.
Plus we're all there.
Don't even get me started on Chantilly.
Don't even stop.
Let's go. All right. Guys down there ready? Okay, I'd like to call to order the April 22nd, 2024 OSAC meeting. Please, Ann.
All right, David Rossi,
Present. Roll call, please.
Bobby Zanka,
Here.
Kristen Joyce.
Here.
Duke Barlow.
Here.
Nikki LaRochelle. Jay Beckerman.
Present.
Welcome.
Mix it up there.
And we are missing Chris Tennell unless he decides to join us virtually.
Okay. Thanks for joining us, Jay. Any discussion on the March minutes? Thank you, Alex. Yep. I move to approve the March minutes as written.
1 second.
Okay, agenda. I do have something I'd like to discuss about the agenda, but actually, is there anything you have regarding the agenda?
Nope.
Okay, I want to put it to the group, and it's okay either way, but I want to propose the option that if everybody is in favor, we vote as a commission to make a recommendation to council on how to move forward with Cucumber Gulch and the options that we've been discussing. And it is okay if any or some of us aren't ready to do that, but if we are, I feel like we've been talking about it for a while, and if we're all in that state of mind, then let's just have our discussion, vote, and move on, because we've been talking about it for a year.
Seems like longer.
Yeah, I mean, maybe longer. Thoughts?
I'm okay with that.
Thoughts about this?
About whether we have a vote tonight or we wait for a subsequent meeting. Realistically, it'll probably be June, which is okay, but April's our open house.
Right.
May.
I'm sorry. Thank you. May is our open house.
So, could you kind of give beyond just the idea that we've been dealing with this for quite some time? Are there kind of benefits in your mind kicking this back to council now, or waiting, or?
You know, David, I don't think it's urgent. In my mind, the benefit would just be the efficiency of our time, like move on to other things if we're all ready for this phase. I think that's the most tangible benefit, and that doesn't make it urgent. But I just, you know, like to me, I'm there and I would be comfortable with that. But if we're not as a group, then let's wait.
Can we make a recommendation along with some comments that we would like council to follow through on before they make their final decision?
I believe so. And
Yeah, you can of course make any recommendations you'd like.
So there were, Jay, I'm going to ask you, you were here tonight. There was, Kelly, there were, I think 4 here. Hopefully you posted it.
Only 2 of them are seated.
Oh, sneaky. Okay. Good work. Do you feel like this is something that's right? I know we kind of did this in a little bit backwards way. Do you feel like there's information that might change based on tonight, or that might change sort of the tenor of the conversation at council that was had? And I'm sorry I wasn't there for the joint meeting. What's kind of your feeling on that?
No, I think that, when we had our joint meeting, there was a lot of the discussion was kind of rehashed and brought, and council had a very similar outcome that you all have and have had, in the fact that it comes down to what are the goals. Like it's pretty it seems very murky, but it's not when you look at it. It's like, is it preservation or is it, amenity? And obviously it's not A or B, it's somewhere in between. And how do we best accomplish that? And so I think that council was in lockstep with the advisory commission. And that being said, I would feel comfortable having a recommendation be brought forth tonight.
What do you think, Bobby?
As long as I can make my comment.
You can make your
I'll
comment.
make
David,
my-
do you? I know this is new idea. What do you think?
Bosac, not such a new idea. I've been showing up here for a while. No, I think my question was about what kind of new information we got this evening. And since I was not at the joint meeting, unfortunately, I don't know how that conversation went. So I think if the broader group is in favor of it, I guess the reason I asked about sort of urgency, and I know, things start to get a little old and dry after a while, trust me, it just happens in meetings in general. But I feel like if we're going to do something, we ought to, do it right and not worry about the time. But if people are comfortable that we're both doing it right by kicking it back to council, and this is the time, then I'm okay with that.
Nikki?
I'm okay to vote.
Okay. Okay. Well, I propose we add it to the agenda. We can get some public comment and then have it be our first agenda item, maybe because it's fresh in everybody's mind. Okay with you, Ann?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any other agenda discussion items? Okay. Public comment, and I appreciate those sticking around for the encore. It says on here, non-agenda items, 3-minute limit, please. But also, now that we've added Cucumber Gulch and we're about to discuss it first, welcome comment on that. I guess my request would be limited to new information, but open to hearing from the public on other non-agenda items or Cucumber Gulch items. Okay, no public comment. Great.
I don't know if anything new can be said at this point.
Maybe that's an indication we're on the right track.
Beat this dog to death.
Okay, well, let's talk about what we'd like to recommend to council. Who wants to kick us off?
Oh, are we going, we're sticking it in there right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that okay with you? Just seems like.
Yeah, okay. You're the chair.
Let's stick it in right now.
All right.
Are you going to be the new Jeffrey, like the foil?
I'm going to try, but I don't think I could rate it. I don't think I bring myself to that level or down.
All right, well, I have something to say. I think that option 3 has a lot of positive benefits, but I would like council to approach Nordic Center about them rerouting their use of that part of the trail to get off of what we've just spent a lot of time and effort trying to preserve, so that it's not compacted with snowmaking equipment, so that the Nordic Center still has access to the top of the gulch, but not through that fin.
Yeah, I could be wrong. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I don't, from my understanding, and I should just let staff speak to this, but I don't think the winter use impacts the wetland.
So I've noticed when we were going through some of these reports that there is a section in one of them that Econometrics did, and I'll just see if I can find it real quick, that listed stressors on the fins and critical stressors on the fins. And one of them was snowpacking compression in the winter. That's their equipment going over that fin to make the trails. And
Well, I
to,
know you guys have to, well, Tony, you should just speak to it. You have to maintain a certain, there has to be a certain depth of snow before they're allowed to use a groomer. Is that right?
That is correct. And that's in those wetland areas that we go out and measure each year. It's 30 inches of snow that we'll go out. They call us to check in on those measurements to protect areas like that. We did do it. Ecometrics did do a study. I'm not sure that exact date, but they did notice some willow stunting and growth in those particular areas. But they actually said that was even provided a more viable habitat for those areas as well.
well, it's in,
One thing, excuse me, the trade-off you have to think about is the width that you'll have to make that new trail if you run grooming equipment through it, which would be like 16 feet, probably minimum, as opposed to if you're just doing a single track trail, which you can have a much smaller width where you're not going to have to remove as many trees, etc.
so that's 16 feet wide over the fin right now? The
Yes.
equipment goes?
Yes, more,
Yeah.
even more,
Corridor.
even more. Yep.
Okay, well, the report calls it critical wetland stressors, and one of them is augmented snowpack, snowmaking, compaction. It is a stressor for the fin, and we're trying to protect the fin.
I don't think yes, there'll be some impact with those compacted snow, but the overall benefit of mitigating the trail will create a better habitat in general. There might be some stressors on that wetland, but not the way it is now. Does that make sense? And we could, possibly look at altering the new route to accommodate the groomer route, but that'd be something we'd have to discuss with the Nordic Center. And yes, it would have to be at least 16 to 18 feet wide of disturbance. And then looking at the radius of the turns as well, considering the Nordic ski compared to a normal hiker, and then trying to keep people on a single track trail when you have a 18-foot wide corridor becomes very difficult because you don't have anchors or trees or stumps to hold those corners of a turn. Now it's like a big wide open.
So I think, Bobby, you're talking about really two different things here, right? So you're talking about you're okay with the summer or the trail realignment for summertime for option 3, right? But you're adding on here concern about the snow equipment in the winter through where it's existing now and would continue to exist, even though this were done. I think, Mark, what you're saying is because we would just have to cut down a lot more trees
we'd have
in that new area, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how, it'd be a pretty narrow corridor if it was just for a single track trail, we're cutting that through.
Yeah.
If we have to do it for the snowmobile or the snowcat, as Tony said, it's going to be super wide. So now we're going to have 2 wide swaths up there, which is kind of counter to our whole wildlife protection kind of approach.
To have
one swath and then another, because that other one's not going away. Even if we try to revegetate, it's going to take years for that to, so it's still going to be there.
So even if we have option 3 built, and then we're still leaving the Nordic, the groomer through there, there are impacts that are noticeable in the summer and beyond the impacts that Bobby's talking about here, the stressors when the snow melts.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
I'm not sure on
Okay.
that, but it would just seem to make sense if you're putting more, if you're increasing the clearing, that's going to have more impact.
Oh, you're talking about on 3.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, I wasn't following you.
If 3 becomes the winner now.
Right. If 3 were built, so the current plan, 3 would be built for a summer, winter route would remain the same.
Mm-hmm.
Is it all possible? And I'm sorry, Bobby, I didn't know about this. It's interesting to me, but I almost feel like, wow, that's something I hadn't even thought about. And maybe that is something that could be looked at separate, separately, like a different alignment there and I don't, we're looking at a map, so I don't know where the critical fen habitat might be, if it's possible to not cut a wide swath on option 3 and then look at other spots, say further up north for, you know, the winter equipment to run through there, that it maybe isn't as critical of fen. I don't know. I'm just asking the question because I think you bring up a good point. It's in there and you mentioned that, and I apologize that I just didn't know about it. So it's like, can we talk about that at another time to bring that up? And I suppose if it does, if Ecometrics comes back in and says, oh yeah, that is a big stressor, then I suppose the following summer, if we did decide that it's too important, we could widen that option 3 later.
So I'm pretty sure that Nikki and I had this conversation when we did our site visit, and we were very much under the impression that, so this just says compaction. I'm trying to reconcile that with Tony talking about how after a certain amount of snowfall and before you're allowed to groom, there's got to be something in between, like a bullet that says compaction and that. And I'm kind of gathering from our conversation with Jess and what you're saying is that then it minimizes the impact once we do these mitigation efforts of waiting for the snowpack to rise and everything. And I feel like we were very much under the impression that the winter use was not a concern to Ecometrics.
Correct.
And that's what I thought too, based on our conversations that we had here. But then I read this and it sounds, it's on the list of critical wetland stressors.
What is that, Bobby?
This is their 2021 monitoring report.
And were you going to say something about that?
I was going to say the 30 inches that we measure for snow is in the open water wetlands, not in the area where option 3 is being discussed.
So what's the minimum?
There's not.
And is there a concern that if we have a seasonal?
They don't connect up there without that 30.
I mean, they need snow, but yeah, we don't measure in that
upper and
area.
lower until you hit that 30-inch threshold down low. Yeah.
Yes, there's no way they get from here up.
Is there a concern having a summer trail go one way and a winter trail go the other, that we're bisecting the habitat twice? Almost like we're almost dicing it up into thirds, right? Like,
well, it's interesting. The wildlife consideration, it seems negligible in the winter as far as I can tell as compared to summer. But again, I don't know, just this goes on ad nauseum, so don't listen to me. Yeah.
Good point.
And there's a lot of winter trails that aren't, and like the whole Nordic Center exists in the winter that doesn't exist in the summer. So in that way, there's different trails already in the winter than there are in the summer.
Right. So is it staff's sense that the winter use isn't, like, what's your sense about how problematic the Nordic use is?
I think it's always been off the table for discussion because it's a grandfathered use.
Okay.
So we have not evaluated really beyond having a snow depth for grooming.
Okay, that's helpful to know.
Unless
One of the original studies showed, and this was back in 2001, showed that one of the rationales was, this has been identified as a very biodiverse area, an area that we protected for its, for the wetland values, of course, but also the biodiversity as a big part of that. And this Nordic grooming has existed for, at the time, 30 years, and it's still as biodiverse as it is when we want to protect it. So that's why it was, well, therefore, one, there are fewer animals and it's less, it's less impactful for that reason. I mean, certainly there are animals in tough stages during the winter because they're into their own, there are fewer animals in general. The migratory songbirds are a perfect example. They don't exist here during the winter. So therefore there are no migratory bird impacts during winter.
Right, but we were talking about fin impacts, not animal.
Understood, but that was the rationale back in 2001. The SAIC's report was, and so the decision was, we're going to continue with the operation in the Nordic Center because it's both and. It's been around for a long, long time, and it's been a biodiverse place. So, and then we did some limited studies about, willow regeneration and impacts and duration of compaction of snow. So in other words, those areas, those trails that are right now starting to melt out, the areas around them will melt out first. So the growing season is longer adjacent to those trails than it is actually on the compacted trails. So that would be the impact that we've measured and shown, that there is a delayed growth pattern in those corridors. So therefore you may not have as much growth in those because they have a shorter growing season essentially. And on top of that, willows, in this particular case, sexually and asexually reproduce. So they both, grow as you would typically, see a willow grow, but they also are kind of root runners. They send out little shoots. And so you'd see different patterns of growth in those areas, different, not necessarily worse than you would, outside of the areas that have been compacted. Those have been the studies that have been kind of targeted at winter use specifically. But I think the point is, if you have to create a new corridor for a groomer to fit in there, you're going to have to clear out 16 to 18 feet of mature vegetation to make that cat go and fit in there. And so the idea being, it'd be worth asking Brad, thank you. Brad, it'd be worth asking Brad if he thinks that compaction of snow is a problem for the fens. I can tell you he knows, or he does believe, that the turnpikes are the problem, are the ones. So that's the first thing to take those out, and then you could make decisions based on that and see, okay, how does it improve when we pull those turnpikes out? That's sort of the first step, I think, is what Brad's leaning towards.
Yep, very much.
So we could ask him if he could just opine on that, because it doesn't sound like it has been studied to a certain degree.
Not on the fens specifically, but again, knowing the patterns that they groom up there, they don't connect what they call the upper and the lower, that being above the Peach Trail and below the Peach Trail. They don't make that connection sort of the last until the 30 inches in the meadows is essentially compacted and approved and ready to go. That's at that point. So it is a fail-safe in the sense that you may not have 30 inches exactly up in those upper reaches, but you're gonna have 30 inches down below, enough snowpack to kind of feel like that's the spot at which they have more snowpack when they run through there with the group.
So we don't know how much snowpack they actually have up in this area that we're talking about.
I know some of their thinnest areas are downhill of that.
Yes, right in the air.
Yeah, so the climb essentially, and some of those, that south-facing slope adjacent to, what is that, the spreader pond?
Yeah.
But it's because it's south-facing.
It's south-facing.
My sense is it's a pretty good snowpack once you get up over the hill there, and that it's at least as much as it's sitting in the wetlands down the gulch.
Well, either way, can we pursue this but keep it separate? Like, I don't think it's definitely good that we're digging into this, but I don't think that the winter Nordic use is really on the table right now as part of this recommendation.
But you could ask that can't recommend the council look into, that we'd advise staff to look into long-term separately, or that's what Bobby wants to.
Yeah, okay. Okay, got that one, Bobby. Other thoughts on option 3?
Yeah, no.
Okay.
That was my big concern.
Okay, no, I mean, it's good because I don't think it's been thoroughly vetted. We have reason to believe it might not be as impactful, but we don't know that for sure.
And I would say that that's not like an option 3 specific request, right, because all of what they groom would be wetlands similar to what is currently the existing trail. So it's not a question about what it does just to that little section, but it would just by default kind of open it up to the whole.
Right, because they are grooming in this area as well, and over here.
Yeah.
So they are grooming over other existing.
Do they mount fens?
Well, those are fins right there.
Just the blue areas are not.
Is there enough room right above where it cuts through in that area?
And right in here?
No,
right
above, up there, yeah, where you are now. Is there enough room there that if they rerouted that way, they would avoid a
It's
fin?
hard to say.
I doubt it. There's also, as Brad was talking about, some of those dangerous areas that you can drop down 12 feet. That's all in that area.
Oh, it's attrition.
Yeah.
Stay on track.
Survival of the fittest.
All right, who else wants to offer their opinions?
I guess I will, I'll go. And I think option 3 makes the most sense. I feel like I learned a little bit of information tonight. Again, you know, Jess and even Hannah were very helpful. A couple of things. One is Wendy Wilkerson's comments are, I think she's spot on about, you know, mitigating the signs of the gondola, but I will also say I don't love that the Welcome Center is sending people up here. So you know, and I know anyway, so I would love to see maybe that not become a habit of the Welcome Center to recommend that, although, you know, we're going to have a new hotel guest area up there where the concierges will probably possibly do the same thing. I don't know if, I think when Grand Colorado was built, and then when Crystal Peaks was built, I remember we spoke with Rob about how they educate their guests on cucumber. That's always been kind of an ongoing conversation at POSAC, like try to get these folks to really understand what they are what they're overlooking and how important it is to those of us who live here. So maybe that's a little education.
Tourism office's response to that issue of them recommending it.
But I hate tourists.
No, that it's in every guidebook. Every online reference to Breckenridge mentions Cucumber Gulch. So even if they didn't,
I think mitigating, yeah, I totally understand. I think we definitely need to mitigate it. Mitigate that shock hill. I don't know where that house and the sign is for the gondola thing. Let's fix that as soon as we can. The other thing that I felt like I would like a little bit more from staff when you guys, you know, create an RFP for whomever's going to work on, you know, rework this trail. The boardwalk and the raised areas, I think, are really, really important. And I'd love to see those be studied and looked at where they can be raised up. I know we've had the little, what do you call that? I can't remember the name of the hexagon.
The helical piers?
Yes, thank
elliptical.
you. You know, if that is, I don't know if those were kind of not great solutions, but whatever it might be. The other thing that I will say is that the thing that I keep staring at is Gold Digger. If we're you know, having those trails so close to one another, I don't love that. I don't love that area. If we're trying to minimize making some adjustment there or whatever it might be, consolidation of those trails, in my mind, might be one way to help that. I think hiking is the most boring thing in the world. I'm just saying that. I'm a biker, but I don't think bikes should be in here. I know. I'd rather stab myself in the eye than walk, but that's okay.
But I agree with you about the bikes.
I'm shocked.
I know, this is surprising. I agree.
That's me personally on that trail particularly, but I know there's probably other bikers in the room that probably would draw and quarter me. So other than that, I'm okay with I think option 3 is a good way to get us there. So
great. I guess I'll go. I am also in favor of option 3. I think we heard pretty clearly from town council that option 2 was not something they wanted to pursue. And we've talked a lot about that already, so I don't need to kind of belabor that point. I think it's kind of like get rid of the trail or option 3 are kind of like the ideas that I've still heard on the table. I mean, I know option 2 is still on the table, but I don't think I've heard very many people express support for that. I think that I love your idea about kind of the consolidation. I didn't really even think we spent so much time talking about the other part of Cucumber Gulch that I haven't really noticed that. And I think that's a great idea. Also really love the consolidation points, like true entrances. We've talked a lot about that before, but clear signage of where you can enter the gulch and clear signage where you cannot enter the gulch and keep it as narrow and defined as possible, which I know is already high on staff's mind. I just don't think I heard enough evidence that removing the trail as it stands currently would, like, I was looking for like facts or evidence that like something would change because of that. And without that, I don't think I can make a suggestion to remove that section of the trail. I'm not compelled by that, like, because it's already there, it's going to continue to get used. I think there's ways to mitigate that. And I don't think that's a reason to keep a trail open because people are breaking the rules anyway. I think there's a lot of instances in life where that's not the case. Like, if I think that if we got rid of it, it would still definitely minimize impact there. But I just didn't hear enough to compel me to get rid of that whole section. And so I think option 3 is the best guess, not a guess, best option. I think I'm open to like talking about bikes, but I think we can table that for now. I'm not sure if we're ready to have that conversation.
Yeah, the people know where we live.
I don't know where you live.
They'll find us. They'll find us.
Yeah, we have talked about it before.
That's true. I mean,
it doesn't mean we shouldn't revisit it at some point.
Yeah.
You know, some of the.
I would like more evidence about like if bikes really do change the dynamic in the gulch. And I'm not sure we've heard that yet.
Right. Jay?
Yeah. It was funny. Felt like after the first maybe 15 minutes of the presentation, I was like, not only do we need to ban the trail, we need to cut down the gondola. We need to get rid of everything, right? We need to build a big wall around it, and it was.
You're not in campaign mode, are you?
It's such a prized possession, and it's such a haven for so many things that we all care about. But I lean back on the fact that, preservation doesn't happen without enjoyment. Enjoyment doesn't happen without preservation. And, some of the discussion about the toads and, what is correlation and what is causation really got me into a place of going, there is access that is needed from here. And, but there is a lot of things that we can do, as an open space, as with trails, with minimization, which was, I guess I didn't know the difference between minimization and mitigation, but I learned tonight. And so that was great. But through minimization, that some of those things are in the packet right in front of Nikki, where it's putting cameras on there, limiting those hours so that they don't start until well after sunrise or the dawn, and closing them down before dusk. More of the signage and education, maybe even looking at increasing seasonal limits, and kind of just narrowing the gap a little bit. But some of the things that you alluded to was, the need for a family experience, as well as while narrowing some options makes sense, but expanding some options for that neighborhood up there away from the gulch, where there are fun, family-friendly trails that are, not as intimidating as the Peaks Trail, but are other places that concierges can direct guests to say, hey, the gulch is closed until 10 o'clock, and it's not only open for July and August and only on odd days. You can also go over here, and this is open all the time. And exploring some other opportunities to create a family fun environment for guests up there, I think would be prudent to even just kind of put on the table to look at, to see if that's available, knowing that the demand is only going to grow for that area. But with that all being said, I do think that option 3 seems like it's the best way to move forward, and would be supportive of it.
I'll keep it short. I think option 3 is the best way to go. I have faith in Tony. I trust his expertise. Walking that with you is really helpful. It seemed like you were on board with that alignment in general. It seemed to manage the hydrology issue, which was the main concern that I understood. I think, I guess, pulling up old Cucumber Gulch reports, just trying to keep it short really quick, but the wetland health is interesting to look at over the last 10 years. It seems to sort of maintain, but that's because we're dumping a lot of time and energy and resource into this. So I don't know, sometimes I do worry that I've thought, like, do we need to have intermittent closures of the gulch? But then you're like, oh, there's a Nordic Center with weddings and it just gets complicated. So for the time being, I think option 3 is the best. I do think I try to find a way to justify, I'm with you, Dave, no bikes. And I was trying to find a reason, like something data to point to, but I would like to argue that philosophically we could just get rid of bikes because of the ethos of like the environment it creates. Like if this is a preserve, I don't think that in my mind aligns with bikes. I think we're worried about usership numbers. So that's one way to manage usership is not allowing bikes. And we have a lot of trails built for bikes and we don't have a lot that are dedicated to hikers alone. I can only think of 2 trails. So in that way, I don't think we necessarily need data to say that bikes are doing more damage or whatnot. I just think maybe that would be a good way to approach it from a philosophical point of view. The end. Thanks,
Great. I also am in favor of option 3. I won't repeat. I agree with all his recommendations. I can list them if you want. A couple that weren't mentioned. I think we've discussed it before, but I think that there's widespread support for figuring out ways to increase enforcement. And if we need to pour more resources at that, I think that that's worthy. I would like to learn more from CPW, what their thresholds are to reach the mitigation point. You know, Hannah said she would need to look into that, but I think about future BOSACs and councils and, you know, I don't want this to be viewed as like, okay, in 2024, they said just keep this trail and reroute this little bit and it's there forever. Like, I think we should have some sort of guardrails to protect against. At some point, it's something too much. So that's where those CPW
ongoing assessment.
Yes. Yeah. And another one, I'm not sure if this has been talked about. It was in one of Greg's notes to us. Is you know, I want to trust Tony to construct this reroute with whatever help you deem is appropriate. I want to be careful that we have no strings attached from Friends of Cucumber Gulch. It's great that they're helping and we have a shared agenda and they've made this process way better. So I'm super grateful, but I don't want in 7 years' time, we decide, or BOSAC and council, that's not us, decides they want to close this and Friends of Cucumber Gulch is like, wait a second, we put $100 grand into that trail and we get to say to keep it open or whatever. You know, maybe that's an unfounded concern, but
well, I would like to secure that. I talked with Kirsten a little bit about that and she's aware.
And that's probably not a problem with Friends of Cucumber Gulch, just something I want to make sure is expressed. So, I don't know, there were lots of recommendations and ongoing stuff, but that was all 6 of us supporting option 3. I think it's notable that Tennell's not here. He might not have been in support, but we don't know that. But I guess go ahead, Nikki, Kristen. Sorry.
Well, I just want to, I really like Duke's point that like, I think we put so much into this decision that I agree that like looking back on it and saying like, oh, they chose to keep the trail minimizes the amount of concern and conversation that we had about this. And so however we decide to memorialize this, I think that the concerns and the caveats that we have should be really noted so that future councils can really look back and say this is the thought process they had up until this point, and then totally agree if there's like a point of no return that we would be open to like closing the trail or doing something, or you know, better mitigation efforts or something like that, because I do get concerned that it just feels like we're just after all this, we're like, yep, leave it open. And I think that we had a lot more conversation than that. So however we can memorialize that, I think would be great.
I would say that, you know, Anne, you and I spoke a long time ago, seems like, about some way to create observation areas for people along the perimeter. And I know that is a real long-term idea and an expensive one at that maybe that is, you know, hopefully can stay on the table for future BOSACs and councils to consider if it does become to the point where, you know, there needs to be changes with Toad Alley, that becomes something that along Ski Hill Road, that there is the ability, and depending on, you know, what forest health looks like and what people might be able to enjoy from, you know, boardwalked area that is just below Ski Hill. And maybe that is, I know that was one of the ideas that was thrown out there. And thrown out probably for practical reasons, but I don't have to be practical tonight.
Well, we're getting some BTT money.
Yeah.
And that's something that we could think about for that.
Well, I think with the bike issue, if there are bike alternatives, I think, you know, the Peaks Connect Trail, there probably needs to be some alternative for people on the Peaks Trail to be able to go through or get around it in a way that works for bikers, because otherwise, if we were to close that, all we're going to have is an enforcement problem if there's no alternative for people coming off the Peaks Trail. But, you know, whenever that conversation happens, if it does.
Thanks for letting us do that. Do you feel like you have enough from us?
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
She's thinking, yes.
All right. Nice work. Okay. Staff summary, please, Anne.
Yeah, in the interest of time, I'm happy to take any questions on that. Please look through the open house topics for May 20th. Let us know if you're going to be there, and let us know if there's a particular topic you would like to adopt and be ready to kind of talk about, stand around. We'll get some tables created. We are going to be at the Breck Nordic Center this year, so the Daytons have allowed us to take over the lodge for that, which will be awesome. But other than that, we need to get to officer nominations.
Yeah, real quick. So you're okay with us sorting out who talks about what?
Absolutely.
Email?
Yeah, just let Tony know.
Let's just, it is in the staff summary. Shall we plan on a meeting after the open house? It's our choice.
I'm fine with it. I'm missing the June meeting, just to let everybody know. So
where are you going to be?
I'm not telling you.
Okay. Does anybody object to scheduling a meeting after the open house?
No.
So yes, you want one?
Yes, please.
Okay, we will not likely be able to do Zoom capability just because we'll harden that facility potentially.
Where, what day is this? The 20th?
May 20th. I think probably better than the gym.
22nd. 22nd.
Oh shoot, I think I need to switch the flyer. That was last year's.
20th, yeah.
I'll make a new one.
So it's
Wait,
Wednesday, the
It's
22nd?
Monday, the 20th.
20th, yeah.
Okay.
It should be Monday. And so we're thinking of starting 5 to 7 roughly for the open house. And then we could do a short half-hour BOSAC meeting after that.
Okay. Any other questions, comments on staff summary?
I just had a quick question, like more being new with the commercial license agreements. And this may be county or the partnership, but Colorado, are there some commercial companies that are allowed to use Larium?
No.
Trailhead?
No,
Okay.
not at all.
Huh.
Just kidding. If you do see them,
Find out
please
who
let
they
us
are.
know.
Sounds like you know
Yep.
something.
No, I was just Saturday morning seems to be a really time for bands.
Colorado,
Let us
Logos on the
know.
side.
really? Colorado Adventure Guys does have a Forest Service permit. I'm not exactly sure where they are permitted, but they are one of the few commercial outfitters that does have a winter permit with the U.S.
But not on
Forest Service.
Lorium.
Yeah.
Not on our property.
On the trailhead property.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Appreciate the update on the signage work plan. Great, we have 9 proposals. Maybe that can be something on the.
How many were there actually? It says approximately 9.
9.
Okay.
Well, there was one that had a personal issue and got it in just a little bit late as we were typing this up, but
Okay.
it came in. So
more to
anyway,
come.
so it's officially 9.
Okay.
Okay, chair and vice chair. As you'll remember, we switched the schedule for this to be annual to allow for more opportunity. And yeah, I said my piece on this a month ago, but
Good practice.
I am nominating Duke to keep chairing,
I second
driving
that.
the ship,
Yeah. Second.
if you feel so inclined.
yeah, I'm happy to do that. And I maintain that when people feel ready and qualified, that we should look to turn it over. And I think that's healthy, but if everyone is in favor, I would be honored to accept. We probably have to vote on this.
Mhm.
I move we reappoint Mr. Duke Barlow as chair once again.
Second.
Second.
Great.
Or we have to vote, right?
Yeah.
It'd be good to have a yes.
Yeah.
Jay.
or-
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Bobby.
Yes.
Thanks, Chris.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Unanimous. There
Yes,
we
I
go.
accept. Thank you. And vice chair, I would like to nominate Nikki.
It's been an
She's getting
arduous
back in
one.
that seat. We gotta put her to work.
Agreed.
Guess we have to
Okay?
vote. Yes, I accept. But I
I move
have
we
to-
appoint
Yeah.
Nikki La Rochelle as the BOSAC vice
So good
chair.
at this.
Great.
I second. Oh.
Jay,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Bobby,
Yes.
Kristen.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, wonderful.
Great.
Congrats.
See, we're cruising.
Big night tonight.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're cruising. That part we did.
Yeah, that was good. Other matters, so Jay, typically we have at the end of our agendas, other matters just for people to bring up small stuff. If there's enough lead time, it's nice to give staff a heads up, so maybe they can prepare for some information, but it can be small items or suggestions for future agenda items or whatever, so open discussion for that. And then we also like to get an update from our council liaison on those open space matters pertaining to council.
He's like, no
Yeah.
You
pressure.
were prep for this, so
I
it's
was
okay.
like
if you
looking
wanna-
back at my notes, going, what did we
I
talk
wasn't
about
sure he
2
was
weeks
like
ago?
official
If you have
for this
gossip,
meeting,
we
so I
can
didn't
take
put
that
that in
too.
there.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway,
Is
Uh,
Jay
you
official?
should think about it.
I think so. I think Kelly dubbed me.
He does.
With a sword.
I didn't know you were
Yeah.
like, is this a tryout
Exactly.
tonight? I think you've done great.
You know,
We
this
get
is
to vote
from,
on
want to make sure I'm on the right page.
Jay.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot, you know, we've going through the final reading for the defensible space, which not really open space, but does pertain to keeping ourselves safe from fires, which, you know, there was, I don't know how much you guys saw, but there was a lot of like push and pull, kind of like what we were discussing with peak 8 of what is preservation, what's an amenity, what is defensible space for fire protection, what is landscaping for the, you know, the beautification of our town. And we were going through a push and pull like that, but we ended up passing the second reading and adopted most of the Firewise stuff. You guys saw the BGV development agreement and the money that's going to be going towards Cucumber Gulch, which is fantastic. Other things, and that was really it as far as things that would pertain to us.
Thank you, Jay. I have something. I just want to thank you, Anne.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I know that there is in the works a send off maybe next week sometime after work. More details to come.
I talked to you a little bit.
I heard you. Hope I'm not disclosing secrets. Anyway, hopefully we can all say goodbye to your surprise party. But just thanks and congrats. I don't want to muffle anybody else. Say whatever, but I thank you and congrats, and predated me, and it's been inspiring to see your time and energy put towards our open space program. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. It's bittersweet as always, moving on, because develop all these great relationships and Such a great program, amazing staff. Take care of them for me, please.
And what I really appreciated about you, and I know it was, it wasn't always easy, because sometimes you were the lone voice, is that you really had, you really have such a focus on conservation and wildlife and the activity I don't love to do, but it's important. It's an important voice that I think, we've all kind of been user-centric, and we have our own special needs and agendas and all that. And I really appreciate the way that you brought to the table so many, so many issues that I personally didn't really consider as much before. And I feel like particularly around here, you did a really graceful job of, it was a little bit contentious with, folks that had their issues as well, but I appreciate that. And that was really helpful to me. So thank you.
Yeah, I second that.
Thank you.
I third that. I was going to say the same thing.
Thanks, all.
Thanks for saying it more eloquently than I would have, but really appreciate. I feel I've learned so much from you on my short time on BOSAC. And when I came in, I definitely heard a lot about the various perspectives and the various sports that people represent and their populations. And I think that you always kind of pulled us back to center about what the open space program is really about. And so I've learned a lot from you, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that knowledge and that passion has been a real asset for us at the county too, in our partnership with the town, and having Ian have that perspective and just constantly bring us back to that has been really valuable in our conservation focus between the town and the county, and been a great partner. Thank you, so dedicated and such a hard worker. I think we've been able to accomplish so much together in recent years because of your work and you'll be missed.
Oh, thank you.
We should have like a little poster that's like, what would Anne say? Like, considering our next trail.
Put it in the master plan as a consideration.
Just Anne cell phone.
We're going to get all our good wildlife photos.
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
I just
You just
typed
start
Anne
sending us,
wildflower
here's your
pictures, and I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
What is this, Anne?
Thank you all so much. It's been a great pleasure for a quick 7.5 years. Amazing how time flies. Yeah, for sure.
Anything else?
Move to adjourn, motion to adjourn.
Second.
Yeah.
Great.
All right, thanks.
Okay.
We'll be in touch with you guys about.
This is
Rod
party.
Carter.